Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. So we are going to start this week with a quick programming note. As I've mentioned, I'll be spending next week at the AZA conference in Calgary, and then the following week at the AAZV conference in Toronto. I'm super excited for these trips, but that does mean that for the next 2 weeks, Zoo News is going to look a little different as I do a conference recap episode from each conference instead of the standard Zoo News episode. Now, you can still feel free to send me stories and they'll be considered for inclusion when their regular episodes return. But the next 2 weeks will be focused on those conferences. The interview episodes will still continue as normal, as I'm working on getting those edited and ready to go before I get to the conferences. And my hope is to do the recaps like I have in the past, getting not just myself, but special guests at the conferences to discuss their experiences and help y'all feel like you're there with us. I know that those have actually been some of my most downloaded episodes, so I hope y'all are getting excited for these. I already do have a few special guests lined up, so I think it's going to be a great time. I really do. Oh, and a friendly reminder, if you're going to be at the conference, find me, say hi. I love talking to people who love the podcast, and make darn sure that you come out to the Safe Red Panda presentation I'll be speaking at. It's at 9 a.m. on Monday, and I'm going to be running on fumes, coffee, and adrenaline. So it's going to be a good time? ? No, it's going to be a great time. Please come out and support Safe Red Panda. Meanwhile, when it comes to the rest of my life, I'm still here in Fort Worth, wrapping up our final week of shows, doing $1 Million Quartet at a theater called Casa Mañana. It has been such a joy being here, especially because I got to see my worlds collide in such amazing ways. Keepers from the Dallas Zoo and Fort Worth Zoo came out to see the show, and I got to do interviews with people at each facility as well as at Sea Life Grapevine. So it's been an incredibly fun time, but also an incredibly busy one. I was actually, so true story. I was actually hanging out at the Dallas Zoo today, getting some time with some of the primates there, and I suddenly looked at the keeper I was with and said, crap, wait, what day is it? She goes, Thursday? And I was like, I didn't even realize I have to do Zoo News today. I hadn't even started to kind of think about doing prep for this episode because life has just been moving at such a crazy clip lately. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit shorter this time, but, we're hitting all the good stuff. So, yeah, that is everything that's going on in my world right now. And so I think it's time to get this ball rolling. Well, as you can imagine, I don't have any deep dive headline-y type story this week because, again, I literally didn't realize it was Thursday. But hey, that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to just get right into our births. So let's do that. Riverbanks Zoo has announced the birth of some black tree monitors. The births represent the first time the species has successfully hatched at the zoo, which they did after being incubated behind the scenes for 6 full months. Even though they are still little, they are already exhibiting the climbing skills that tree monitors are known for, often being found in the highest parts of their habitat. Our friends at Connecticut's Beardsley Zoo have announced the birth of a giant anteater pup. The little one continues a string of successful anteater births at the zoo, which we've actually talked about in interview episodes in the past. The baby is currently doing well and is doing the thing that the species is known for, being carried around on mom's back where it blends in, making it harder for predators to be aware of a small, helpless bit of prey. Not that there are, predators at Beardsley Zoo that would be going for the anteaters, but like in the wild, it's a thing. So yeah. Anyway, congrats to our friends there for being so great at anteater births. It's so cool. The Cincinnati Zoo has welcomed a baby bonobo to mom Gilda. Gilda is doing a great job being a mom and is currently spending time bonding with the new bondlet behind the scenes. This is an especially exciting time for the troupe as they have also welcomed 2 new bonobos from the Memphis Zoo. So with those introductions, as well as the introduction of a new baby soon, there is a lot of excitement happening for the bonobos at Cincy. And as far as that Memphis thing, keep that in your brain. We're going to come back to that one. The Duke Lemur Center is brimming with tiny animals right now. 3 of the gray mouse lemurs that call the center home have given birth to twins for a grand total of 6 new lemlets. Now, they've all been named, and these names are just too fun to not share. So, first-time mom Belladonna has given birth to Rhubarb and Taro, 10-year-old Mushmelon, and honestly, now I want to have another human child just to name it Mushmelon. Mushmelon, is this the best name ever? It's possible. Anyway, Mushmelon is also a first-time mom with, again, the greatest name ever. And Mushmelon gave birth to twins named Lychee and Rambutan. And then mom Meriwether popped out Beautyberry and Tea Olive. Those names are just so much fun. So yeah, congrats to the Duke Lemur Center on all these tiny little loves. Our friends at Southwick Zoo have announced the birth of a new Grivet monkey. Now, this is not a species that is super common in human care, so the birth is extra exciting. Mom is doing a great job taking care of the little one on exhibit, so you can stop by Southwick's and see it now. And then last but not least in births this week, the San Diego Zoo Safari Park is celebrating the birth of a healthy male Sumatran tiger cub to first-time mom Jillian. Jillian is doing a great job raising the little one, being attentive, responsive, and patient. They are currently bonding behind the scenes, but the zoo will announce when the little tiglet can be seen by the public. And then that moves us on to our deaths for the week. And this first one is quite devastating. Well, let's be honest, they're all devastating, John. But yes, Happy Hollow Park and Zoo has announced the passing of Xena, a 5-year-old red panda. Now, back in 2023, Xena was diagnosed with a possible atypical form of Addison's disease, a condition that affects the adrenal glands of animals, including humans. This is actually a really common disease in red pandas and is often hard to diagnose conclusively, and it also kind of seems to show up differently. It doesn't present as like normal Addison's, which makes it much harder to deal with. It's also a disease without a concrete plan for healing. The best that we have right now is a way to manage it medically for a while. So the team at Happy Hollow did an incredible job managing the disease for as long as possible without Xena having a decline in her quality of life. But she did eventually pass away from, probably from the disease. They're still doing the necropsy and all that jazz. But yeah, sadly, she is gone and she will be greatly missed. At this time, they do have one other red panda at the zoo, Will Smith, and they are not planning on getting another one right now. So we'll see what happens in the future. But for now, Will Smith is going to be a solitary red panda at the zoo, which is fine. They are solitary animals. Reid Park Zoo has said goodbye to Billy the lar gibbon. Billy lived to the age of 51, making him the 6th oldest lar gibbon at an AZA-accredited facility. The average life expectancy of gibbons is around 26, so 51 is straight up ancient and is a testament to the care Billy received at the zoo. Now, Billy had called Reid Park Zoo home for almost 40 years, and his voice served as the wake-up call for the zoo every day during that time. So that voice is truly going to be missed. Goodbye, sweet Billy. Hogle Zoo has announced the passing of Patenka, a 13-year-old male Pallas cat that called the zoo home. Now, at the age of 13, Patenka was the second oldest Pallas cat in human care. Known as Potato to the team that loved and cared for him, he was known for getting so excited that he would literally hop when he would see his keepers or get a favorite treat. What an amazing long life filled with love the team at Hogle gave to their little Potato. This next one is particularly tough, y'all. The Shigella infection at the Jacksonville Zoo has claimed another ape. 3-year-old Western lowland gorilla Kevin has succumbed to the illness this past week. Kevin was the youngest gorilla in his troop and fought valiantly against the disease, often seeming to be well on the road to recovery before suffering a setback. Now, this poor team has just been through so much with this Shigella infection, and it's not an easy or short road to overcoming it. So just continuing to send all the love and hope to that incredible facility.
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Did you see the Colombian government is spending almost $4 million to relocate Pablo Escobar's hippos?
In Brazil, a school of piranha attacked and injured at least 8 people at a beach resort.
First fatal mountain lion attack in 20 years in California.
Hey, it's me, Forrest Galante, wildlife biologist. You may have seen me on Joe Rogan's podcast or my various TV shows like Extinct or Alive or Shark Week. So join me and my friends as we break down animal news from around the world and discuss all things wildlife. Click here to unlock these animal mysteries.
The Columbus Zoo has said goodbye to Zola, one of the wolverines that called the zoo home. Zola was actually born in Sweden before traveling to the United States, where she spent time at the Minnesota Zoo before heading to Columbus. She arrived there just a few months ago on a breeding recommendation and started to bond with Alvar, the male wolverine at the zoo, but then recently just started acting very different. And when given an examination to try to figure out what was going on with her changing behavior, the veterinary team discovered she had a widespread inoperable lymphoma throughout her abdomen. So the decision was made to humanely euthanize her. While she had only been at the zoo for a short amount of time, Zola really made an impact on her care team, and she will be truly missed. And then last but not least in goodbyes this week, the Maryland Zoo has announced the passing of Mr. Greedy, the oldest African penguin at the zoo. He was 33 years old, and he leaves behind 230 descendants, which is obviously multi-generational. He didn't have 230 chicks, but still, that is an insanely impressive number. Mr. Greedy is not only survived by his 230 descendants, but by his partner, who was, of course, named Mrs. Greedy. What amazing names. And I know that the team at the Maryland Zoo is making sure that Mrs. Greedy gets a lot of extra love and attention as she goes through the loss of her partner. And that brings us to the rest of our Zoo News section for the week. We start off with some really exciting news. We officially have a 2024 Red Panda kindergarten class. This time, it's only 2 pandas as opposed to the 3 at Greensboro last year, and it's taking place at Seneca Park Zoo. So you already know from previous episodes that Seneca Park Zoo is hand-rearing their red panda cub, Teddy Graham, after mom said, "No, thank you." Now, Asha, who was born at the Birmingham Zoo and also abandoned by her mother, has moved to Seneca Park Zoo. And these 2 cubs are going to be hanging out in the hospital. They won't be visible to the public, although they will be visible on camera to the public. So, like, you can see them just on a screen. And they're going to learn to panda together. And if there's anything that I learned from Zuko, Azula, and Miso, it's that red panda kindergarten classes are amazing. So Seneca Park Zoo is worth the trip for a lot of reasons. And even though you can't see them up close, Just going to a place with a red panda kindergarten is pretty special. All right, so for this next story, I'm actually putting this into zoo news, even though it isn't from a zoo. But it is news that is going to affect the veterinary care given in zoos, and I'm frankly really excited about it. So we often talk on here about the challenges veterinary medicine faces, especially in zoos and with exotic animals that we don't know a lot about. And sometimes even the things that we kind of take for granted when it comes to animal health are actually really hard with certain animals. For instance, did you know that stethoscopes don't really work well on reptiles? Who knew? I mean, okay, most veterinarians knew, but I didn't. It turns out that scales interfere with sound transmission. Turtles and tortoises hide their hearts behind their legs and heads when they tuck in, and they also have, obviously, their, shells on the top and bottom. So it's actually, from all of that, incredibly hard to get a heart rate on most herps, which is really crazy to think about. It's just a basic part of medical care outside of the reptile world. But I can't do it with reptiles. Until now. Cornell University's School of Veterinary Medicine has been researching this issue, and they have now discovered a way to consistently measure the pulse in an easy-to-reach part of the back of the head of reptiles. They use an ultrasonic Doppler flow detector, which is something that sounds super fancy, but is actually really common in veterinary clinics. So this is awesome for so many reasons. For starters, it's obviously important to listen to heart rate to monitor health just in general, right? You don't get to go to the doctor without them shoving a too cold stethoscope onto your chest and causing you to go, eek, and then they listen to your heart, right? Important. But beyond that, one of the main ways vets and techs can tell that an animal is doing okay while under anesthesia is by monitoring the animal's heart rate, which is something they haven't been able to do with reptiles until now. So most of the time that a reptile has gone under anesthesia, the people caring for it have been unable to fully make sure it was doing fine in the way that is the universal standard. We check the heart rate, right? And they can't. But now they can. This is going to completely revolutionize the veterinary care that reptiles receive moving forward. And I am so excited about it. What an amazing discovery. The AZA has announced the 46th Safe Species Program, which is focused on preserving the thick-billed parrot. Now, this is a bird that calls the Sierra Madre Occidental Mountains of Mexico home, specifically just a small area of pine forest in those mountains. And this is despite the fact that the bird used to have a much larger range, including parts of the United States. Unfortunately, the U.S. population was entirely wiped out back in the 1930s. And as a species that isn't super well known, the focus of the SAFE program will, of course, be protecting the land these parrots still call home and all of that stuff, but also raising awareness of these birds so that people learn about them and learn that they exist and actually start to care about saving them. So hopefully that's going to turn into a successful educational opportunity and more people will learn about these incredible birds. So this next story is a little crazy. A tiger escaped from Quinta Lafana Zoo in Reynosa, Mexico, and was not found for a week, sparking fears in the United States that it may have crossed the border into McAllen, Texas. The tiger, named Tony, led authorities on both sides of the border on a search that was anything but great. Get it? Tony the tiger? Yeah. Anyway, after a week-long search, authorities found multiple animal carcasses that seemed to imply the tiger was close and hunting. So they baited 3 traps in the general area the carcasses were found in and were successful in trapping the tiger without harming it at all. The escape included the tiger completely destroying the mesh of its habitat, and because of that, the government has determined that Quinta La Fauna is no longer capable of properly housing the tiger, so Tony will be moved to the Tamatan Zoo. Concerns about the tiger crossing the Rio Grande and moving into Texas and stuff, they seem to have been sparked by social media posts from people in southern Texas claiming to have spotted the tiger there. But it appears these were all hoaxes, as the tiger does not appear to have left Mexico. Still, it is so crazy to think that multiple government agencies and the zoo itself were just unable to find an escaped tiger for a week. Not great, y'all. Not great. On a much happier note, a quick update to a story from last week. We've been following the progress of Biggie, the red panda cub that was born at the Toronto Zoo this year and has faced some challenges. Well, last week I mentioned that Biggie was in the hospital getting some additional care, but after completing her round of antibiotics, Biggie is back in the red panda habitat. She seems to be doing very well, though the zoo is quick to remind everyone that this time period is still incredibly challenging for red panda cubs. Still, it is nice to see that Biggie appears to be thriving again. So many zoos and aquariums have started taking steps to help guests with disabilities, and especially sensory issues, be able to enjoy their facilities more. Quiet hours, sensory-friendly days, and having sensory-friendly kits available to guests are just some examples, but Melbourne Zoo is taking it to a deeper level. The zoo has announced that it will be closed to the public, including its members, on October 12th to host Dream Day. This is a day created in partnership with the Association for Children with Disability, and it's a day where the entire zoo will be transformed to provide children with disabilities and their families the ability to enjoy the zoo in an environment they normally would possibly find difficult to navigate. The willingness to close for an entire day for this event is absolutely incredible, and I give all the props to the Melbourne Zoo for taking this initiative. I also have the feeling that I'm going to have the Mickey taken out of me by some of my Aussie listeners for saying Melbourne instead of however you pronounce it, which is probably some kind of ridiculous way that has nothing to do with how it's spelled. Just saying. I love you all, though. I love you so much. Anyway, 2 more stories for the Zoo News section. First of all, the Memphis Zoo has announced something pretty surprising: the departure of their entire troop of bonobos. All 6 of the apes will be making their way to other institutions, with the first pair already at their new home in Cincinnati. That was the bonobos we mentioned before that have arrived, right? As one of only 8 institutions in the U.S. to care for bonobos, this is definitely a surprising decision to make. And in reading the press release about it, it seems like this is due to the exhibit no longer meeting the needs, both physical and social, of the current troop at the zoo. The zoo will be renovating their habitat into a new and upgraded lemur exhibit, which I'm sure will be absolutely incredible. But it's crazy to think that once the last 4 bonobos leave Memphis, only 7 institutions in the United States will have them. I know that they're not like super common, but I guess because I regularly go to Columbus and Cincy, I didn't realize just how rare the species is. And we're going to end our Zoo News section with some super exciting news from Mote Marine Laboratory. Now, you may remember the tragedy that befell the 2 resident manatees there, where a normal sexual encounter between the 2 caused internal damage that led to the death of one of the manatees there, Hugh. Since that time, Buffett has been alone as Mote worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to figure out the next step for Buffett. And now that next step is happening, and Buffett is getting introduced to a rescued manatee who will be a new companion for him at Mote. There is a full introduction plan in place, including all kinds of safeguards, but at the end of the day, it just makes me so happy to know that Buffett will be getting, another friend. And frankly, that Mote will continue to feature these animals at their incredible facility, because while what happened was truly a tragedy and heartbreaking, and I'm sure you all remember, but I did an entire episode on those two manatees, and it was glorious. I had an amazing time with them. What happened was natural and unfortunate and rare and surprising and all the things. So I'm really glad to see that, they'll be back to having two manatees at Moat.
Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring you to conservation news.
All right, so something that's been disturbing me for a while now is the fact that it seems like so many huge conservation stories aren't really making headlines around the world. I asked y'all to let me know if you had heard about the recent oil spills I talked about, I think 2 weeks ago, and no one had. And now I'm about to tell you about another ecological disaster currently taking place, and I'm again asking you to tell me if you've heard about it, because I'm guessing most of you haven't, and it's kind of huge. Did you know that the country of Brazil is currently experiencing major wildfires? In fact, an area of land roughly the size of Italy is currently burning in Brazil. Now, areas around the Amazon River and the Amazon forest and stuff are currently burning, and that's just not a thing that happens, right? I cannot stress this enough. Those of us who live in the US or even in parts of Europe are used to annual wildfires, which, by the way, is a pretty horrible sentence to be able to say, but it's true. This happens. These are dry areas that catch on fire every year. And honestly, even Canada has experienced their fair share of wildfires recently. But South America, specifically around the Amazon, simply doesn't burn. It's too lush, it's too wet for that to happen normally. The Amazon rainforest, water, wet, to the best of our knowledge, it has never burned before now. So how is this happening? Well, for years, local people have used controlled burns in the area to clear land to raise cattle to supply the US, China, and Europe with beef. Now, because of the wet and humid climate of the area, these fires have never posed a threat of burning out of control before. But thanks to climate change, South America is facing unprecedented drought, and the controlled burns are now running uncontrolled throughout the country. Over 60% of Brazil is now covered in smoke because of these wildfires. And this coincides with the Amazon River reaching its lowest levels since humans started tracking the stat in 1902. It is so bad that entire indigenous communities that rely on the Amazon have been stranded without food, fuel, and drinking water because of this crisis. Fires have already consumed 9% of the Pantanal, which is the largest wetland area in the world, which has obviously destroyed so much of the biodiversity there. It's a true tragedy, and while Brazil and other nations such as Bolivia are trying to fight back, they don't seem to be having much success. And like I said, this is just not something I really hear about. One person sent me this story, and it hasn't popped up on any of my social feeds, which are obviously very tuned to this kind of thing. I've spoken to multiple people in the conservation world about it, and many haven't heard a word. This is just blowing my mind right now. So again, let me know if you have or haven't heard about this crisis, and here's hoping these fires get under control soon. Going back to the oil spill, right? I was just talking about the oil spills, and I mentioned last week that up to this point, no animals had been found oiled. And that's great for those two spills. However, SANCOB has now been activated because of yet another oil spill in the area, this time from the MV MSC Apollo. And this time, seabirds have been oiled. So far, 6 penguins have been rescued, with an additional 2 avoiding the rescuers to this point, even though they are covered in oil. I am so grateful that SANCOB is standing by and able to help in these situations, but what is going on with all these oil spills lately? And again, why is no one but SANCOB talking about this? It's just crazy to me. But okay, after 2 very heavy stories, we're going to have a couple of happy ones to end the conservation news section. First of all, the Apache trout has officially been removed from threatened status by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The Apache trout is the state fish of Arizona, and reintroduction and Head Start programs have been taking place in partnership with many zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. So this is a huge conservation win. Very exciting stuff. And then last but not least in conservation news, we've got some more good news. A bird that has been thought to be extinct has been rediscovered. The Musau triller, a black and white bird with a chestnut-colored chest that is native to Musau Island in Papua New Guinea, has been documented for the first time since 1979. The photographs taken of the bird are not only the first proof of the species still being around since then, but also are the first ever photographs taken of this species of bird. Amazing. And apparently some conservation organizations have entire lists of birds that haven't been seen for a long time that they don't actually think are gone, and they just call them lost birds. So in this case, what was lost has been found.
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
This week, a large black bear was found wandering a busy beach in South Lake Tahoe, just wandering along as humans went about their beachy behavior. Now, in what might be the most shocking part of this story, and honestly, possibly the most shocking part of all of Zoo News this week, all of the humans at the beach stood back and stayed calm, not trying to go up and take selfies with the bear or tackle it or whatever other idiotic behaviors you would expect from a large group of the worst animals around, humans. The bear, which was walking with its feet in the water and seemed quite content to just keep going and stay cool by being in the water, well, it just kept wandering until it was away from the humans again and normal beach things started up for the people. So yeah, nature actually coexisting with humans for a moment is just exciting to me. Louisiana State University has a mascot named Mike the Tiger, which is an actual live tiger. And for years, Mike has actually gone to games, which is not something I love. And I do want to be clear here. I think it's fine with some animal mascots. Rise and Conquers are the Ravens that live at the Maryland Zoo and attend Baltimore Ravens home games. Cool, I'm down. There's a bald eagle at Elmwood Park Zoo that attends Philadelphia Eagles games as the mascot. And I've seen the training. It's incredible. And you know, these animals are super well trained and they're comfortable at the games and they're trained for them. And it's just awesome. They do great work. Very cool. However, veterinarians determined that Mike the Tiger was not going to be in a good place health-wise if he continued to attend games. So the decision was made to not have him return. Not everyone loved this. Some people at the university and even the governor of Louisiana got involved personally, asking the vets to reconsider. But they said no. So Mike will be staying away from the stadium, which is clearly the correct decision here. Yay, veterinarians. Mike, by the way, is different than those birds in many ways, including that Mike does not live at a zoo and get transported to games. Instead, LSU has a tiger habitat on campus where Mike lives. And this is not an accredited situation or anything, unlike the Baylor Bears in California. So, I have thoughts about this situation, but yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. And then last but not least in other news, here's a fun fact for you. Otters are believed to be the only animals that can detect scents underwater, which is why an otter is being given a job usually held by dogs. An otter by the name of Splash is being trained to do scent detection work, specifically to sniff out evidence and victims of crimes underwater. Now, he's still in the process of being trained, but is already helping to solve crimes, having successfully found underwater evidence and giving a proper marker that led to the recovery of said evidence the one time he was actually placed into the water at a crime scene so far. A search and rescue otter. You gotta love it. And this is especially going to help out in areas like in Florida, where if there's ever like a dead body in the swamp, gators can not only eat it, but they can take it and store it. They will literally take like human remains and store them for later consumption, which makes it very hard to find. They're hidden, underwater in the gator's habitat, but it can be found by a search and rescue otter. So actually, this is a very big deal and also adorable. Although I did just think that means they're going to have to put an otter in a gator area. But hey, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure they will make sure the gator is occupied or not there first. So yeah, search and rescue otter. I love it.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
It is officially September, which is Save the Tiger Month and Save the Koala Month. Don't feed a koala to a tiger or you won't be saving the koala, even though the tiger will enjoy it. That's my advice to you all, especially my zookeeper friends. I don't know what's happening. It's very late, working very hard this week. Anyway, today is the 13th, which means that today is Friday the 13th. Good thing I didn't realize this until now, or I would have done this dumb voice for the entire episode. Anyway, it's also National Mountain Chicken Frog Day. The 16th is Plover Appreciation Day, and the 17th is National Fox Day, and those are your animal holidays for the week. But I do want to drop a quick friendly reminder that next week, Saturday, the 21st, is International Red Panda Day. Find a local facility that is celebrating the day and go celebrate red pandas. Oh, and hey, if you come to the Safe Red Panda meeting at the AZA conference, we will be sharing some stuff that you can use for your International Red Panda Day celebrations at your facility. Just saying. So yeah, those are your animal holidays for the week, and a plug for IRPD. So there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News is done, and the next 2 weeks, like I said, are going to look real different. So hey, before you go, don't forget to, apparently the phrase you're supposed to use now is smash that subscribe button. But just subscribe to the podcast, y'all. That way you won't miss any Zoo News episodes or any interview episodes, right? And make sure you're following along on the socials, especially Instagram. I'm guessing if you're listening to this, you're following. But y'all, we are so close to 20,000 followers on Instagram, which is insane to me. So we may actually hit it the day this is released if my growth keeps happening like it has been. So we'll see. But yeah, make sure you're following along on all the things at Rossifari, on TikTok at Rossifari Pod. And don't forget that you can support the pod for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. And I'm going to say thank you right now to my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Kevin Williams. And then last but not least, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who contributed to Zoo News this week. Anya Keem, Colleen Linehan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky,
The Malenskys.
Jacob Zinn, Matt Patford, Andrew King, Holly Page, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Jess Wells, Jay Meredith, Anna McEachran, Ann Yoshioka, Rowena White, Nikki Morley, and Sherry Weiss. Thank you all for contributing this week. Don't forget to bang it back here on Tuesday for a new interview episode. And until then, remember, friends, the words, newsy credits backwards, or Snyder Kiswin.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.
Come join us at Slave Fred Panda. Good job, buddy. Yeah, good thing I'm on that steering committee.